Hello, everybody, and welcome to Joslyn Field, where we have the show here on Around the Town with Chuck, just before the final week of the regular season football, as the Conneaut Spartans will be doing battle with the Grand Valley Mustangs in a big county rival game here tonight. My guest is Brad Ellis. Brad, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Chuck.
I think everybody knows Brad. There's about 10 things I can say about Brad, but first thing we'll say, he is the analyst for high school sports on ESPN 970, a great basketball coach with the Geneva Eagles in the past, and a member of the Ashtabula County Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's all correct, and it's great to be here. Haven't done a game in Conneaut in a couple years, and we're excited to do tonight's game. It should be a great game.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, too. The Mustangs have won the last 3 against the Spartans. So we'll see what happens here tonight. We'll have a little bit more on that game in a minute. First thing I want to talk to you about, Brad, is people talk to me. I'm sure you hear it too. People look at the Star Beacon on Saturday morning and they see the scores and they see a lot of the county schools getting blown out when they're playing teams we don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's just a shame that we can't get together and have some kind of a county league. I know there's some schools that and I don't know all the details, but I know there's some schools that are against it. But it's a shame that we have Conneaut going east into Pennsylvania. We've got Jefferson going south on Route 11, and we've got Geneva going to west on 271. Now, the good thing about for Geneva, Lakeside, and Edgewood, they will all be in the Chagrin Valley Conference next year. So that'll be 3 local teams. That will be in the same league, which will be nice to see.
There's about 22 total teams in that conference. Is that correct?
It's a divisional thing. They have the upper level and a smaller school level, and so Edgewood and Geneva and Lakeside will be playing in the same division. Perry, Harvey, I believe, and I think there's one other school. Maybe West Geauga might be with them, and then Chagrin Falls, Orange, Beechwood. That more northwest area will be more in another division, is how they divided it up, I believe.
Like I said, Brad Ellis is here. They're going to be covering the Spartans and the Mustangs tonight. You also have another game you're going to be covering tomorrow, another big game between St. John and Chalker. So prep work, you're not only preparing for 2 teams, you're preparing for 4. Yeah. How do you do that in 1 week?
It's tough, especially when I'm teaching too. You come in, you have rosters, you're given rosters, you just look at stats, you try to get an idea of what's going on. You look at the polls, the computer rankings. We've got a team tonight that's got a shot at getting in the playoffs with Grand Valley. Tomorrow we've got St. John's, who's 5th in their region, playing Chalker, who's 9th. So that's a big game for both teams trying to get into the playoffs tomorrow. So it's a fun time of year, exciting time of year, and I expect to see 2 great football games this weekend.
When you look at this game here tonight, the Spartans and the Mustangs, I don't know how you see it in your prep work, but to me, they're kind of mirror images of themselves. They both have a great running attack, and they both have pretty good quarterbacks, too. I know the Spartans have been using a 2-quarterback system.
It should be, yeah. I think both teams are very similar. Right now I'm drawing a blank, but the young man from Conneaut is close to 1,000 yards on the year rushing, and their quarterback has thrown for over 500 yards on the year. And then we did a Grand Valley game early in the year, Grand Valley Jefferson game, and Grand Valley lost a lot from the year before, from last year, but they still have some outstanding weapons, and they're 7-2. They're an outstanding football team.
One of those weapons I think you're talking about is Newell, the great running back.
Correct. That is correct.
And then, of course, they can pass, too. Gordon Seeger, I think is his name. Yes. I say mirror image these 2 teams because they both have blown out people. Both of them have been blown out. They've won contested games. So what do you think the keys would be for each team tonight in order to get in the win column?
Well, I think both teams, as you said, like to run the football, and I think they both need to establish the ground game and get that going, and then I think they can mix in the play-action pass, get their quarterbacks to roll out a little bit and throw the football. But again, and I know it's an old cliche, but it comes down to turnovers. Who's going to take care of the football, I think, is going to be the answer to who wins this game tonight.
I think Coach Rocco Dobrin always says one of his keys is to score first and then score next.
And last, right?
Oh, yeah, last.
That's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing to say, and I believe that. But, yeah, Coach, and speaking of him, he's done an outstanding job here at Conneaut. Came in and has turned this program around, and each year they're very successful, and they're fundamentally sound and a good team, a fun team to watch.
Let's talk a little bit about the game you're going to cover tomorrow now, St. John and Chalker. St. John has been an amazing story this year. I think they're 6-3 going into that game. David Cumberledge, the quarterback, has done a fantastic job, and he's missed about 40% of the season.
Yeah, he's been kind of banged up, and we'll see what happens tomorrow if he's a go. We have not heard for sure if he's a go yet or not. And we did the Chalker PV game in I think week 5 of the season, and Chalker's got an outstanding team. They got a big offensive right tackle, is about 6'5", 6'6", about 310, and they run over him a lot. And I was very impressed with the Chalker team. So that should be a great ball game tomorrow.
I'm really happy for the Heralds because it wasn't all that long ago where they didn't even have a football team, and I think they only have maybe 20 to 25 members on the squad.
Yeah, they do. They have a small squad, but an outstanding job by the coaching staff. And we talked about the quarterback Cumberledge being banged up a little bit, but other than that, they've been, when you have 20 to 25 kids, you got to stay injury free, and they've done that for the most part on the year, and that's led to the success and the 6-3 record.
So a win by the Heralds, Brad, gets them into the playoffs?
Yeah, they're 5th in their region, so a win gets them automatically. And if they lose, it's going to be close. And I'm not sure how they do the computer polls. Chalker definitely needs to win because they sit at 9 right now. So, but St. John wins, they're definitely going to be in.
And with Grand Valley tonight, it is a must-win for them, and they still might need help.
They still might need help. Exactly. They're 7-2 coming in, and this would be a big win. Connie out with 5 wins. When you play teams that have winning records, that helps with those computer points. So, but they're sitting right on the edge, and it's going to be close to see what happens. Even if they win it, they might not get in.
Brad, of course, you've seen a lot of these teams in the county. We'll talk briefly about some of them. Let's talk a little bit about the Lakeside Dragons. I know they have a pretty good quarterback in Johnny Anzervitz, and they have that Gavin Bish, who's a pretty good runner as well. And the Dragons broke a 6-game losing streak here not very long ago. And a game I think you guys covered with University School. It was a thriller, so maybe that can get them going again, you think?
I think so. And again, a new coaching staff, we see a lot of that around the county, new coaching staff. It takes some time to put in your system. And Anservitz is just a gamer. He's a great kid to watch. He takes a lot of hits. He gets up. He battles. He's definitely a warrior that I would like to have on my team. He does a great job of running that system for the Dragons.
Of course, they have a new coach, too. With your chances, I'm sure you've had a chance to talk to him. What's his feelings on how his first year has gone?
I think he's excited. I think he sees a lot of potential at Lakeside. He's had some issues, I think, with numbers this year. He's had some injuries. He's had some kids that don't want to follow what you're supposed to do, and they've chosen not to play. And I think he's setting a strong foundation there, and I think Lakeside football is definitely going to be on the swing up.
That'll be a good thing for the county as well. Let's talk about a school you're pretty familiar with, the Geneva Eagles. When I was looking at some of their numbers this year, they seem to be a team of threes. They won 3, then they lost 3. They lost 3, won 3, now they've lost 3.
And they've got a decent, tough game tonight against Chagrin Falls. Chagrin Falls is coming in 5-4, and the Eagles, as you said, has 3 wins. And they've had some injuries during the season, lost some key players, and some of them have come back. A big surprise for them was a young man named Charlie Taylor, a big fullback, about 6'2", about 240 pounds, sophomore. So I know Coach Sorber's excited about him. The next question next year will be who will they replace. Kyle Stark's been their quarterback for the last 2 years. But they've got a lot of guys back. That junior class is a strong class. So I know Coach Sorber and the Eagles staff is looking forward to, they've built on some things this year and looking forward to next year.
You mentioned Kyle. He's having a great year.
He is. He does an outstanding job running that wing tee. The wing tee offense is a deceptive misdirection counter type, but there's a lot of quarterback reads, and he really does a nice job of understanding that offense, and he makes some great reads. And anytime read option, wing tee type thing, a quarterback's got to be a good ball handler, and he does a great job with ball fakes.
You look at their record at 3-6, and I always find their record, at least in football, to be a little bit deceiving because they play some bigger schools out there west of Geneva, don't they?
Well, they do. They opened up the year with Madison, who's not having the kind of year Madison normally has, but that was week 1. And then week 2, they played Mogador out of the Akron area, which is, I think they're number 1 in their region. Smaller school, I think they're Division 6, 5 or 6. And then they played Kirtland in week 3, and everybody knows about Kirtland. They're going for another state championship this year. So, those first 3 weeks were kind of tough, and they were 0-3, but as you said, came back and won 3 more. And then they had some injuries and trying to get a win tonight to end the year with 4 wins.
Another team I want to talk a little bit about, Brad, is the Edgewood Warriors, the football program there that has struggled for a few years. They did manage to get to the 500 mark early in the year at 3-3. They had a conference win over Jefferson, I know. And they're under a coach for the first year. I'm sure you had a chance to watch Edgewood play.
Yeah, we did there a couple games, and Aaron Picacco had some outstanding games at quarterback, and then he suffered a shoulder dislocation, and they lost him. I think they were at 3-3, and then week 7 is when he got hurt, and they lost him. So after when they lost him, because I think he threw for over 500 yards in one game. I think it was against Brookfield, and again, an exciting brand of football. I think again they're looking at struggling with numbers. Saw more kids out this year, and that's a good sign at Edgewood.
That is a good sign for the Edgewood Warriors. You mentioned PV a little bit earlier. You covered them. They're 2-7. They just broke a 7-game losing streak here last week with a victory. They've got a pretty good quarterback, though. His name, I'm drawing a blank. Is it Dronick or Dronick? Drenick.
Yeah.
Drenick. And he seems like he's got some potential.
He's a big guy, too. I don't know if you've seen him play. He's about 6'3", and he's about 220, 225. When they first came out to warm up, if he didn't have number 3 on, I think I thought he was going to be an offensive lineman. But he does a nice job. He's a big, strong runner. He does a nice job throwing the football, and Coach Gronson does a great job at PV. They're 2-7, but for what he does a great job with the material that he has. They're very fundamentally sound, and they're a good, fun football team to watch.
And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the Jefferson Falcons. Of course, they're 0-9. We've all been there. We've done that. Not a very good season to go through. I think I saw where 4 of their games they've been shut out. That's 40% of their schedule. How do they turn things around there?
Well, again, they're young. They lost, a lot of their players they've had the last couple of years graduated. Coaching change again. Coach Henson retired from there, and young team, and they don't have an easy task tonight. They play LeBray, who's a very, very good football team. So they're in for a long evening again tonight. But again, be patient with them. I think they're young. I think they've got a good coaching staff, and I think you're gonna see them get things turned around in the next couple of years. It's going to take some time because they're playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores on that team right now.
We saw LeBray earlier in the year. Matter of fact, it was opening week, and it was a blowout, 41-0 in favor of LeBray Vikings. Brad, where do you see the whole picture? Do you see the St. John Heralds? If they do go to the playoffs, and they will with a win, we've established that. Do we have any idea who they might be playing?
Not sure yet. It's kind of crazy. You can look at the matchups. It's usually one plays 8, 2 plays 7, so they would play the 4th-ranked team, but that right now you don't know who that's going to be because tonight's going to be determined those first 8 slots, and so we will see. If they finish 5th, they will be on the road week 1. If they win tomorrow, and I think a win against Chalker might move them up to 4. And if they get 4, they may have a home game.
Let's hope that happens for St. John. I want to close with this, Brad. I saw a nice article in the Star Beacon today about a guy I like a lot, Tim Taubaka, boys basketball coach for Conneaut, getting into the Hall of Fame there, Brad, and you coached him. Talk a little bit about Tim and what you know about him.
Yeah, first of all, it was an honor for me. Tim asked me to be his presenter at the Hall of Fame, and that was quite an honor, and it was a great day, and it was an honor well-deserved. Tim is just an outstanding he's an outstanding person. I mean, he's just a great, great, great young man. I can still call him a kid, but he's not a kid anymore. Shows how old I'm getting. But I said this when I presented him into the Hall of Fame at Hiram is with all the I coached basketball for 32 years and I coached a lot of players, and he may be the hardest working kid I've ever had. He just determined, never negative thought, always positive, and worked extremely hard. I have nothing but good things to say about Tim. He's just an outstanding. Conneaut High School is very lucky to have him in their system.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable basketball. Unfortunately, hasn't had much success here. Maybe that day's coming.
Yeah, he works at it. He's got if the young men in the community listen to him and work as hard as he did, they'll get things going.
Brad Ellis, my guest. Brad, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully we'll see you around during the basketball season as well. Thanks for being my guest before this big game here tonight.
It's great to be here, and Chuck, I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, Brad Ellis, part of the ESPN 970 broadcast team that will be working 2 games this weekend. The Conneaut Grand Valley game here tonight, and then tomorrow afternoon at the Spire. I believe it's an afternoon game, 2 o'clock, with the Heralds and Chalker. This is Chuck Guglielmo saying have a good night.